Welcome to the podcast with me, your host, the Feral Behaviourist. This is the podcast where the dogs are wild, the humans are weirder, and nobody is pretending to be normal. Where dog geeks unite, training is weirdly fun, and connection comes first. Hello everyone, welcome to the Feral Behaviourist. This episode I have a special guest with me, Becky Walker from BPawsitive Dog Training of Grantham. And today we're going to be talking about classes and why classes are not for everyone. So I'm just going to introduce Becky.
Hiya everybody, it's Becky from BPawsitive. Thanks for having me, Tasha. I really appreciate it. It's just really to get in touch with people out there and let them know why I've chosen to work the way I do with dogs and their guardians.
So how do you work with dogs and guardians, Becky?
Primarily on a one-to-one basis. I did train in a class environment for a lot of my training, and I found when I was working there and working with guardians every day that it wasn't really for everybody. They felt a lot of pressure and a lot of judgment sometimes because their puppy wasn't necessarily behaving the way they wanted, or the puppy was overwhelmed, and they just didn't really feel like they were getting a lot out of the classes. Whereas on a one-to-one basis, I think it's a little bit more personal, and you can also make sure that the puppy is still getting adequate socialization, but in more natural ways and in a better setting.
So what do you think it is about classes that draws people to them?
I think a lot of it is the social aspect. So it's probably very popular with people who, when they get a new puppy, they do want to do the best for their puppy and they want to socialise them well and give them the best start in life and give them the best beginning they can have. But for some puppies, this just isn't the right choice.
Do you think that there's pressure on people to take their dogs to dog training classes?
Not necessarily. I think sometimes it's just the done thing because it's been that way in our culture for a little while now, that people just get a puppy and they expect to go to puppy training. Vets push it, and sometimes they have things like puppy clubs, or they'll recommend training in the area where they do the puppy classes, where they can learn vital foundation skills and life skills.
Yeah, so I used to run classes in person, which a lot of you who know me know. And then obviously COVID hit, and then everything moved to remote working. So I felt that doing classes remotely was much more ethical for the dogs and for the guardians. And of course, there's pushback because whenever you do anything different in dog training or dog behaviour, there's going to be pushback because it's change. That's human nature. But I still think that a lot of professionals kind of push in-person classes onto people.
Yeah, I think sometimes there's the thing of it's because it's the way it's always been done, but actually sometimes just taking a little step back and looking at the welfare of the puppy and how the guardians feel. Sometimes just having the one-to-one sessions, either remotely or in person, can feel much more personal, much less stressful, and you haven't got that pressure on you either to perform, which it shouldn't be like that with a puppy. You should be enjoying your time spent together and looking forward to having a bond that will last a lifetime.
So do you think, from the perspective of somebody who's never delivered classes, that there are goals and targets that are just unreasonable or unattainable for people and for their dogs?
Yeah, I definitely think that people do feel pressure to get up to a certain standard, as it were. But we forget that, dogs, they are individuals. They're not robots. They can't just perform and automatically be obedient or walk with a loose lead. They need to be taught these things, and you can't really teach them that within an hour in a busy class environment. It needs to be a positive experience for both the puppy and the guardian, so it's something they enjoy.
So do you feel there's pressure from people with television shows and the radio, or do you think it's more that there's pressure from professionals pushing to fill up these classes?
Yeah, I think certainly it plays a part, the income of the professionals sometimes, because filling the class means more revenue coming into the dog business. But I do think as well, with popular culture like TV shows, you'll probably see people on there that will offer class environments and class training, and that's always has been done that way. But I think change can be really positive, and I think that by working more individually, that the dogs can get more out of it.
Because dog trainers are never going to agree, and I know there's quite a few people who absolutely disagree with me about it. But then at the same time, I also know a lot of people who feel the way that I do. And when we consider a class setting, so it's an unnatural environment because dogs have never been in that setting to begin with. Certainly not in a natural setting. Um, we've got guardians who are anxious and they're stressed and are worried about how their dog's going to behave, if they're going to be embarrassed, what other people are going to think about them. And then we've also got the travel to and from the class. And obviously, like, we're hitting the summer again now, and dogs' temperatures run a lot higher than ours do before they've even begun to exercise. And as well as that, you've got the temperatures of the cars and the stress of the cars, the stress on the musculoskeletal system for the dog having to hold on in the car. But still, classes seem hugely popular, and a lot of my inquiries are about people wanting classes in person, whereas I only deliver them remotely. And I have to say, it is quite frustrating that people are still wanting those in person classes.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I do think it's each to their own. So, of course, like people, some puppies would love a social setting of a puppy class. But to be honest, if we're looking at managing arousal levels to ensure the puppy doesn't get overwhelmed or feel unwell or just feel stressed, then I think we've got to look at what's actually best for them in the long run. And a lot of the time, in my experience anyway, I've found that puppies are much more receptive to training when it's not in those settings because they've already built up a lot of stress, a lot of excitement. They're over aroused by the time they even get there. And then obviously they're probably not doing the behaviours that the guardians will want, and they think they're failed when in actual fact all it is the puppy is feeling an overwhelm and just needs a chance to decompress and learn at a pace that's more suitable for them.
So we understand that, like, so classes absolutely are an artificial setting when they're done in person.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously puppies and dogs at different ages, different levels and abilities may or may not be able to perform the behaviour whilst they're there. And then you got the other problem, and something I encountered quite a lot was they'll do the behaviour in the class,
Yeah.
but then they won't do the behaviour at home, which again, it's that false representation of what you're getting out of the class.
Yeah, I mean, they will perform it because they'll learn it in that environment, but then put them in a strange or unfamiliar environment and it all becomes a bit alien to them again. So we have to start from scratch. So that's why I would always teach people at home, get that foundation built there, and then gradually increase it into different environmental settings slowly so that the puppy is feeling comfortable and confident and we're not putting any unnecessary stress.
So you just done the pet dog and ambassador with the Pet Professional Guild as
Yeah.
well program. How do you think this differs from traditional training?
I think it's a lot more welfare focused, and I think it's a lot more on based on what the individual is happy to work to, and at a time that and a pace that suits them. There is no pressure to be able to say that your puppy has to do a certain thing by a certain time. It's all done at a nice regulated pace. Everything is done kindly, with force free being the main priority and positive reinforcement. And it's just one of those things where actually we can make it a bit more fun and gradually increase like the socialization aspect by going out into public places and practicing and rehearsing the behaviors there as well with distractions.
So how do you think the Pet Dog Ambassador program differs from the Good Citizens?
I just think there's probably less pressure. I mean, it's still very, very good program. It's very focused on welfare and teaching your dog behaviours that will keep them safe. So that's one of the top priorities. And just basically, I think it's just changing it a little bit up so that you're not feeling the pressure that you have to go and do something that everybody else is doing. With the Pet Dog Ambassador program, you do not have to be in a group setting to learn these skills. So you would learn them at a pace and a time that's comfortable for you. And then we would gradually do it out and about in different environmental settings. And you haven't got that added peer pressure of, oh, well, my dog can do it and your dog can't. Because, of course, we've got to look at things like genetics and breed traits and different behaviours for different breeds. And, you know, if they do go into a class with mixed age groups, that can also play a part. you will have dogs that are probably hitting adolescence. You don't ideally want them in with puppies, or senior dogs, for example. But yeah, I think it's a very positive program, and I think it's great that it's something there for guardians to explore that's a little bit different.
So you don't have a strict pass and fail with the Pet Dog Ambassador program like you do with the Good Citizens.
No, it's more of you basically can get to the behaviour being almost there. You can pass, or I don't really think they call it a fail. I think it's more of like we can try again at another time once we've got the dog comfortable with the behaviour. So again, it's just working to what that individual dog can do.
Yeah, and the Pet Dog Ambassador program, there's 4 levels. There's like level 1 for puppies. Oh, 5, sorry, 5 because you got the champion level.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the different levels that you got for puppy and then any age dogs. But the really good thing about the Pet Dog Ambassador program is that you've also got the test for the guardians and a workbook that the guardians get to learn from.
They can, and it's really nice because it's like they can get acknowledged for their hard work and their commitment to their dogs, because they can be listed on the Pet Professional Guild website as a pet dog guardian who's done the ambassador course and passed that. So it's just a little bit of recognition, because having a puppy is hard work. They're like having a baby. They're a full-time commitment, and sometimes it's just nice to be acknowledged and know that you're actually doing the right thing, even when sometimes it feels like you aren't.
So, what about the socialization aspect? So, of course, a lot of people go to classes because of socialization, but we know from studies that this has changed and our opinions have changed. And like we was talking privately earlier about when you know better, you do better. So, how do you see classes in relation to socialization?
I think socialization isn't something that should be forced. Like you said, it's a bit of an unnatural environment, having probably 4 or 5 or 6 puppies all in one space together. They can very easily get overwhelmed, and I prefer to just do things in a bit of a more natural, no pressure way. So we would have the one-to-one sessions initially in the home, and then we could start going out and about. And what we want to do is teach the puppy that yes, it's okay to have puppy friends or dog friends, but you don't need to say hello to every single dog. And socialization, as we know as well, isn't just about being around other dogs. It's about being in different environments. It's about being subjected to different things in the environment and different sounds and things that they probably wouldn't necessarily see in a puppy class. And there's just some things you can't replicate. So I just think it does prepare you a little bit more for real world challenges rather than in the class, because you do get the expectation, as you say, is you'll go into a class and your puppy will perform perfectly, but then you take them out in the real world and something might happen that will spook them, and then that behaviour will go right out of the window anyway. So
yeah, because with socialization as well, like when we take our dogs on walks, I'm very mindful, like I said to you before, about keeping out of people's way where I can clearly see that they're in distress with their dog because their dog is being reactive. And reactive is kind of like this dirty word that many of us are trying to show that it's not a dirty word. It's simply a dog who's just not coping with the environment at the time. And there seems to be a lot of force of dogs who are reactive being forced into these classes as like a cure-all, basically.
I think it's sad. It's sad really that they get put into these situations where they feel they can't cope and they have to react. They're using coping strategies that they know they're trying to communicate to us. So I would rather, like you say, if you're out and about in public and you spot someone who's having a problem with their dog, you can give them space. You can, allow for it. And I really find it difficult when people, like you say, target reactivity with being an aggressive dog. It really isn't. There's not many truly aggressive dogs. It's just because they cannot cope. They're either overstimulated, overexcited, frustrated, or unsure of what they're looking at. And it's the only way they know that they can communicate these fears or these feelings. So what we've got to do is help them to feel better about things, grow their confidence, and not just throw them into a situation where they will shut down and where people then all of a sudden think they've been cured of it magically because they're just in a situation where they're feeling totally overwhelmed. And it doesn't help. And we want to build positive associations with the outside world and things that they'll come into contact with. It would be like me forcing someone who's a phobia of spiders into a room full of spiders and expecting them to perform perfectly at, I don't know, whatever they can do, singing or dancing or something. So I wouldn't expect it of someone. And we also forget that dogs, we wouldn't ask a 9 or a 10-month-old human baby to do the things we ask a 9 or 10-month-old dog who's going through adolescence and the second fear period to do. So I think we've got to take all things into consideration.
And I'm going to go down this rabbit hole, and I know people don't like it, but social media. With the surge of social media, especially apps like TikTok, we've seen a lot of balance trainers like trying to appear as they're doing their flex in quotation marks, where they've got 40 dogs in a field that they claim is a class, and guardians who don't know any better because their specialist role, their job, their career isn't based on dogs. So what can we say to help guardians in those situations who literally don't know any better and think that that's a normal setup?
Yeah, I think what I say to people is go with your gut instinct. If something doesn't feel right, it usually isn't right. It's not normal for dogs to be in that much of in that large of a group. There's very much this alpha and pack mentality stuff still going around. I think we just need to look at our dogs a little bit more on an individual basis, not put them under that pressure, and for guardians maybe to try and educate themselves a little bit more, because dog training has changed massively in the last decade or so, like hugely. There's been so much research done and advances to show that actually a lot of the force that's used in the traditional dog training is it actually can damage your dog. We want to try and build a good relationship with them to help them feel better about the world, and so that they can cope when we do put them in situations, but not unnatural situations.
Yeah, because you see it with group walks as well, or you hear about there's been an incident on a group walk and the guardian's obviously distraught because of, whatever's happened. So going forward, and for any guardians that are listening to this, and even professionals, because this podcast is for both, what would your recommendation be in an ideal world of somebody who's got a puppy or a rescue dog, or maybe they just want to do some training with their dog, what they should be looking for, what they should be aware of with red flags, and what an ideal world would look like for them from your point of view?
So firstly, I would even say it begins before you get a puppy. So research the breed you would like, so that you know all of their breed traits and things that can go wrong, or things that they'd probably do that you wouldn't be so keen on. And then once you've got your puppy, it's really important to find someone who's on your wavelengths in regards to ethics and what methods they use to train a dog. So me personally, I wouldn't look at anybody who would use aversive tools. So for instance, slip leads, prong collars, or electric shock collars, things like that. I would look to see how they actually are with the dogs, because you can tell a lot from how people are with animals, how they're going to treat them. And ideally, what we want to be doing is working with someone who you know that you can actually work with and not feel intimidated or judged by, because there's nothing worse if you've got a new puppy and you feel like you can't ask for help, when you should be able to ask anything of your trainer. And if they do something that you don't like, don't be afraid to speak up and even leave if you're not comfortable. They should not be putting you in a situation where they make you feel conflicted and you think, oh, well, is it right or not? Usually, if you're not feeling right about it, it isn't right. People want to have dogs and love their dogs, so why would they want to harm them by using these outdated techniques that have no place in the modern dog training world? There is the UK Dog Training and Behaviour Charter, which I'm hoping will come into effect a little bit better, because that will actually guarantee that the person who is part of that will adhere to like the strict welfare standards and make sure that the dogs in their care or who they're working with are treated in the highest regard, and their safety and welfare and well-being a priority, as well as the guardians, because they need support as well. It's a difficult time sometimes, as well as being a joyous time to have a new dog. And especially if you're getting a rescue, they do come sometimes with a whole host of probably issues that you can work through. So it's just looking at your dog on an individual basis, but really do your research. Check that this trainer who you're going to be working with is qualified. As it is at the moment, dog training and behaviour is an unregulated industry, and you don't need any qualifications to be doing the job. But I think anyone who's putting the effort in and getting the CPD and the development there in all of the modern training techniques and things that are actually proven to work, that are kind and ethical, that's the person you want to be working with your dog.
And I know that I've heard these stories of clients coming to me and they've been to a class and then their dog has been pushed into a corner and a board's been put up, and basically the guardian was made to feel excluded from the class.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for people in those situations?
Leave the class. I just think it's not a place for you and your dog. You're feeling isolated, probably a bit like embarrassed, which you shouldn't at all. All the puppy is doing, or your dog is doing, is showing normal behaviours that just need to be broken down and understood so that we can help them to feel better about things. Putting them behind a board, they're going to get frustrated. They'll still hear and smell everything that's going on. You're not going to feel comfortable. If that was me personally, I'd just say thanks but no thanks and leave.
And what should guardians be looking for when they're looking at classes? Like, should they feel comfortable asking questions, possibly interviewing the trainer, getting reviews from clients who do actually attend the classes? Because we know that reviews can be made up by social media friends as well.
Yeah, it's a bit of a minefield, but I think word of mouth is always great. If I was going to go to a class, I'd look for a trainer that is suitably qualified with an ethical sort of membership body, like the Pet Professional Guild, to make sure that they're up to standard. And I would just literally observe them. I'd even ask, actually, if I could go to a class before I took my puppy to a class, to see how they interact, see what they allow the puppies to do, make sure it's safe. And then basically, yeah, I'd just make sure that everything, that I was comfortable with everything, and that above all my puppy would be comfortable.
Do you have any more advice for people who maybe have to travel? Because obviously, living in Lincolnshire, we have to travel everywhere, don't we, to get anywhere? Like, the travel is just crazy. But from what you know about painting dogs and even puppies, like, what would your advice be for a guardian who's thinking about classes? Maybe they live in a village, and maybe they feel isolated.
I think remote sessions are amazing for that, because they can do everything from the comfort of their own home. They'll have full support from whoever is teaching how to, teaching your puppy their skills. And basically, you just don't want that added pressure on your puppy, like traveling in the car, like you were saying. It's all adding to that, they're basically trigger stacking, so they're going to get over aroused and anxious maybe, and that prevents everything. You've got a really good session from home that you can do at a time that suits you, feeling no pressure, and I think it's a lot easier to be able to take it in, because you're not sort of watching everybody else what they're doing as well. It's all for you and your puppy, and everything will be taken into consideration. So if you've got a little Jack Russell or something, we obviously know how they can be sometimes little feisty ones, which is great. I love all dogs, but they've all got their little different traits. So Dachshunds will tend to bark a lot, but that's genetically bred into them. So it's just making you educated as well about probably a little bit of canine body language, what to expect, what's normal, what's not normal. And you don't need to attend a class to get all that information. You can get it all remotely, or somebody can come to your house and do one-to-one sessions.
So we've also mentioned terms today like over arousal and trigger stacking. Did you want to just explain that for the audience?
Yeah, I tend to use a bucket analogy. Sorry, everybody, if you've already heard this 50 times. So if you imagine that you've got this imaginary bucket, it's a bit fusty, it's been on a farm and got a couple of holes in. But every single thing that happens during the day, so good, bad, scary, fun, exciting, everything will pay a big jug of water into this bucket. So once that bucket actually gets full to the top, after your dog's probably been in the car, seen another dog and had a bark, come home, seeing the postman, all these exciting things. Once it gets full to the top, that's their arousal threshold level. Once they're at that level, they have physiological changes in the body. So their body will fill with adrenaline and cortisol, and they actually lose their ability to focus a little bit because everything is so exciting, so overwhelming, and they could be a bit fearful in there as well. So they're just having a real mix of emotions. And the thing is, that isn't the best time to train a puppy. You need them to be under threshold, so manageable, so that they can actually focus on the task, what we're asking them to do. And it actually takes 3 days, so 72 hours, to decompress from being like an over threshold dog. So that's why in rescue they give you the 3-3-3 rule. So it's the 3 days to decompress, so that they're not feeling overwhelmed or over threshold or anything like that. 3 days to get used to like your habits in your environment, and 3 months usually to fully habituate to a new environment. So we ask a lot of puppies, because within the first few weeks we're asking them to go to a class, do all these different things, meet all these different people, when really we should be focusing on making them comfortable with us in their safe space, and then gradually introduce them to different things in the outside world.
Well, thank you, Becky. That's been really insightful. Do you have any last advice or words for the audience?
And like I say, it's sometimes puppies and guardians love class environments, and that's fine. There's no problem with that. If you're happy to go and you're not feeling any sort of stress or anything funny about it, but it's just, I really wanted to get this message out that it's okay for you to feel that you don't want to go to a class. It's not something you have to do. There is support out there for you. You can do things remotely now, or you can get somebody to come to your house and work with you on a one-to-one basis, where you get all the benefits of a puppy class still, but you're actually probably getting more because it's all focused on you and your puppy. And yeah, you're just not going to feel that overwhelmed, because as well, when puppies hit adolescence, a lot of it goes out of the window for a while anyway. So yeah, I think it's just to make people aware that there's no pressure in reality that you have to attend a puppy class. You can do things differently, and you know, it's what suits you. So don't feel pressured to either attend or don't attend. It's how you feel yourself and how your puppy feels.
So, if people wanted if people wanted to get in contact with you, how could they contact you, Becky?
I'm on Facebook. I'm a bit of an old fogey like that. I have my Facebook account still, or you can WhatsApp me, email me, or text, call me if you like. So my business is called BPawsitive, and if you did want to have a look, my website is www.bpawsitive.co.uk, and BPawsitive is literally like the letter B and then PAWSITIVE.
Lovely, thank you. Well, thank you for being here today, Becky, and for telling us about your opinions and thoughts about classes. And we shall see you next time. Thank you for joining.
Oh, thanks, Tasha. Thank you.
That's it from the Feral Behaviourist. We've chewed the mic, barked at the void, and left a trail of enrichment behind us. Thanks for being with us. Until next time, may your socks stay unchewed and your treat bins never run dry.